Magic meets cyberpunk in Lone Ruin, a roguelike bullet hell where a blue-haired spellcaster explores the dangerous ruins of an abandoned city, hoping to reach the center of its incredible power, slinging death to flying skull bats, bouncing eyeballs of legs, and giant worms, to name a few of the many enemies that you'll encounter. At the start of each run, you are presented with 8 spell options by a pink-horned specter, and 3 of those spell options are upgraded versions of the original. Your choices and spells range from a barrage of shards to chain lightning to a small scythe. My preferred was the chained lightning because it had auto-aim, which allowed me to focus on dodging while mashing away at my spells and waiting for their cooldowns to pass. Outside of these spells offered at the start of each run, you encounter more as you venture through the various battle encounters, like a black hole spell that allows you to drag enemies while doing damage, which was one of my favorites, or the Nova Splash, which deals damage in a circle directly around you. In addition to your spells, you can collect or purchase various artifacts to enhance your gameplay experience. For instance, you can get an Ankh that, surprise surprise, revives you once after dying. Or you could get a double-edged sword that allows you to deal double damage at the expense of taking double damage. Lone Ruin also equips you with the ever-important dash, which is the most important mechanic in my opinion and the one I hunted down upgrades for the most. Speaking of upgrades, you can upgrade your dash and you can upgrade your spells. These effects include having a wider radius, reduced cooldown, increased charges, and more, with some upgrades not being the clear right choice as it depends on your preferred playstyle. Lone Ruin is made up of a series of rooms, with each room offering 2 routes to take with differing rewards. After 6 rooms, which can be from enemy encounters to shops depending on your choices, you will encounter a boss. There are a total of 3 bosses in the game. More on that in a second. All in all, I had a fun time with Lone Ruin. The cyberpunk aesthetic in the color scheme is tantalizing, and the dark dubstep, as the internet calls it, is simultaneously energizing and soothing. The visuals in particular were my favorite. I hoe out for a good pixel art any day, and Lone Ruin delivers in its 2.5 pixelated art style. Alright, and now it's time to talk about the things I wasn't so crazy about. That would be the lack of tutorial, the length of the game, and the replayability. Let's start with tutorial issues. So I know that's the entire conversation and there's arguments for and against all games having tutorials. I believe that at the very least, Lone Ruin should have had some kind of a simple tutorial. In general, I find that tutorials make gameplay experiences smooth by explaining mechanics that could take players quite a while to find out. And if you're a roguelike that's dependent on people dying over and over, some core mechanics definitely should be explained immediately. For example, it wasn't until about halfway through my gameplay session that I realized I could sell my spells and artifacts directly from my inventory, or sell them at all. This was a major revelation, as I often ended up grabbing spells or artifacts that I later realized I didn't want, or that took up a slot I would preferred for another item that I encountered later on in my run. Had I known this, I could have simply sold what I had in order to pick up the newer, potentially better item. In terms of the length of the game, I found it to be disappointingly short, unknown on the girth. I hate to offer this critique to indie games since I know it's very easy for a consumer such as myself to ask for more versus making it as a game dev, but I will say that the roguelike genre tends to encourage repeat play, and there are many indie games that deliver considerably more gameplay than Lone Ruin does. In fact, I was extremely surprised when I beat the 3rd boss and the game just ended. The credits started rolling, and I thought the game had just begun. Prepare to move on to a second area, new world. But nope, it was done. This isn't to say that the time I spent with Lone Ruin wasn't fun, because it absolutely was. But that ending felt more like a cliffhanger than a proper conclusion. an appetizer with a missing entree. In some ways, we might even say this complaint is probably more compliment than critique, because in essence my complaint is give me more. Finally, the replayability was limited for me due to the small scope of the game. Yes, you can change the difficulty or switch over to survival mode, which theoretically adds more gameplay, but in practice, the survival mode felt like the less attractive option that I had little interest exploring further after a couple of tries. Also, while increasing the difficulty can extend your gameplay experience, in my opinion, it's an artificial extension at best. There's no new elements added, the enemies are the same, and they hit harder, there are more of them, and you have less health. My final thoughts are that Lone Ruin is a short, fun experience with a stylized art design and musical composition. If you're itching for a new roguelite and you don't mind that it's on the shorter side, I recommend trying Lone Ruin out.